So today I wanted to talk about double duelist, and that is because XSET ran a Raze Jett comp on Bind. Now, to be fair, I'm not going to flame anyone for playing Jett. Jett, in my opinion, is the strongest agent in the game, and so having this comp makes sense. In fact, I mentioned in yesterday's video that playing Viper, Sova, Astra, and Jett plus one more for whatever map it is, in this case Raze, which makes sense because Bind is a very good Raze map, playing those four agents plus whatever it might be for that particular map you want to play, I have no problem with that, and I think that you could honestly go into pretty much any map, play those four agents plus whatever you wanted, and be somewhat successful with it. But I did think it was interesting, and I wanted to see how Jett would do on this map. And Cryo is actually going to end up pretty high in the leaderboards. You know, they're going to do pretty well for themselves here on the Jett. But you know what? After watching this entire game through and desperately trying to find highlights that said, like, oh, this is a good reason to pick Jett on this map, I really couldn't find many at all. And so we're going to go through the few that we did. We're going to go through some things, though, that I think, you know, render Jett a bit useless, to be honest, a lot of the time, because, you know, Raze could have done a similar thing, or potentially, you know, could do just exactly what Jett was doing, but potentially better in some circumstances. And so we're going to go through it. So first, we're going to start with the defensive side, and I was, of course, expecting that Jett, even though she is a duelist, is going to be, you know, very impactful on the defensive side, obviously with the chance of, you know, playing the aggressive angles and dashing away, and, you know, potentially using the operator. And Cryo did use the operator a lot in the defensive half and found very little with it. Mainly because Bind isn't the best operator map. There's only really a couple places that, you know, you can really find, you know, good value from the operator. Those long range angles aren't as existent as they are on other maps, perhaps. So Bind not the best map for it. Also potentially getting a bit unlucky with, you know, he was changing from site to site with the operator when he had it, and knights were just going to the other sites whenever he'd swap. Right, it was a bit unlucky as well. I'm not going to blame Cryo for it or anything like that. But, you know, didn't find the most value from that. But this was a round where we do get the Jett value. And, you know, this is one of the main reasons why, right? We can just look at this here. Everyone else has a gun, but Cryo doesn't. And Cryo doesn't have the money to buy a gun either. So sad times for Cryo, but no worries, because look at this. 6 of 7 here. Just needs an ult orb to get that ult online. And of course, what do we see at the start of the round? The Jett is going towards B long here, and I'm pretty sure it'll come up on for us. Yep, smoke it off, get the ult orb, and get the ult out. And obviously this is a pretty big deal. It turns, you know, it's basically a free gun, and obviously this is, again, another good reason why to pick Jett. Now, if we go to the map, what's actually just happened there is pretty crazy. What happened there was Sky dogged all the way up here, and pretty much XSET just bought it big time. They just full on were like, oh, it must be an A hit then, I guess. And so they all started going towards A. But as you can see, it was not an A hit. It was just a big fake, and actually the hit is coming towards B. So let's take a look at how Cryo deals with it and what Cryo's going to do right now with this ult. Well, there you go. This is what a pro can do with the Jett. And this was one of the few times that I thought, like, oh, well, that's a Jett thing. Right, like, if he's on another agent, if he's on a Sky or something like that, you know, you might lose this round. If this is a Sky in this position, you know, who doesn't have a great gun, you know, this round is a loss. Whereas with Jett here, this round ends up being a win. And in fact, if we, you know, they end up rotating to the other side, and if we go forward a bit, we'll see that there's more kills to be had as well. I think it's a 4K in this one for Cryo. Yeah, there is a 4K for Cryo in this round eventually, and they win the round. So yeah. This was a Jett thing, you know, obviously the Jett knives are very good. It's basically a free gun, all that. Very, very strong, right? We all know that. But again, this was one of the few times that I thought actually, like, oh, yeah, that was pretty good. That was a Jett thing. A thing that Jett did actually made a difference in a round. And there isn't too many other examples, and we're going to go into a couple other things as well. One thing we did see a lot of on the attacking side from Jett was what is about to happen right now. So the Jett is in here. And what you're going to see is exactly what happened right here. This happened a lot for the Jett, and this was one of the few successful times that happened. So, you know, obviously with Jett, you can get in that dash into the smoke, and then what is interesting about this, you know, kind of duelist comp is, of course, they can kind of go, two players can go and get aggressive onto the site, which is what happens right here. Now, as you can see, kind of a weird thing is going on. If we come to the normal mode, you'll see it like this Viper wall is up, and so it's kind of creating a big stalemate towards Hooker. And as you can see, there's actually 2 players in there for Knights, so it kind of created a weird stalemate. But eventually, that wall is going to go down, and if we play it through, you'll see what happens here, because the Jett and Raze are now just on site, like just watching around, seeing what's going on. And eventually this Jett is going to get the kill. I think then the Jett dies to the Viper, but then this Viper kills the other Viper. Yeah, that's exactly what happens up here. But obviously the Jett and the Raze can kind of really create space, and even if one of them dies, they still got all this space, right? And this is one of the advantages of doing that, and this is something that they were able to do quite successfully, I think, particularly on this B site. Away from sort of, this Viper utility was always up on this A site, but and so without the help of that, and we'll get into that in the next round, but on this B site, getting into this B site, they did pretty well, and I think using the Raze and the Jett to get onto this site, it was pretty successful. Often you'd see that Knights, were kind of forced back into the kind of this is their area, and the actual site, they were able to take pretty convincingly, I would say, XSET a lot of the time. And the Jett did help with that. So that was, again, was one of the few times that Jett was able to really help on this B site. And I mentioned it was a help on the B side, but not so much on the A side. And let me explain why I think that is. Well, generally, it comes down to all of this Viper utility, which is pretty standard for almost every single team. You get the wall up here, you get the orb up here, and the reason for that is it's just going to make it so much easier for you to just, waltz down here, basically. It's just going to make it very, very easy for you. And as you can see, by the way Knights are playing this, they kind of were like, yeah, okay, you can have it. And this is what a lot of teams will actually do. They'll say, you know what, it's not worth it, because if you've got multiple people there and we've only got one peeking into Viper utility and multiple people, they're probably going to lose and we'll end up in a 5v4. So, a lot of pro teams just decide, well, maybe it's not worth it. But if we watch this round and watch it play through, what we're going to see is, that Viper utility go up, and, XSET are going to make the push towards short, but then we're going to get this Jett dash here. And my question is, do you need to? Did you need to? There was no bullet spray. If you look at the positions of the Knights players, there's no one like ready to spray this at all. There was no danger of just walking across. And this is the thing, this Viper wall and Viper utility allows you a lot of the time to just walk through it anyway. So do you really need the Jett dash across? Because this was a Jett dash that was very common, particularly when, teams were first figuring out, like, oh my god, Jett is extremely broken. When teams were really figuring that out, you would see Jett dashes like this, the smoke, the dash in, all the time. But do you need it now? Do you need it when this Viper utility is kind of doing that for you already? Like, that cross isn't that difficult with this Viper utility. I mean, they could have probably just walked it, to be honest. They could have silently walked up, all of them, potentially as well, and got the same thing. And this Jett would still have the dash available. Now, as we move this forward again, what we are going to see this Jett get a kill with the knives here as well, and obviously the knives here do help them avoid the shock dart, and they are going to go and kill the silver eventually, but they're going to take a risk, right, because they don't have a dash, because we just seen them use the dash. And this is kind of what I mean, that the Jett really didn't give them that much in this instance. They lose that fight there, as you could see, and they get stuck, to be honest. They get stuck for a while here, like they have no shower control, kind of just all walked up short. They're kind of just trapped in this area, and Jett is going to help them get out of that, but only because Cryo is a good player. Only because Cryo can get that kill because he's a good player, not necessarily because he's Jett, right? He could have been a Skye with a gun in this situation and also got that kill. There was nothing, potentially stopping him from doing that, and as I mentioned, he doesn't have the dash, so this was a risk, because he can't dash away and get out of this situation. If he misses those knives, he's done for. So that was pretty risky in general. And again, it was just my point that, did Jett really give them that much on this map? Not really. And only when they were going B side did I think it really opened up any space for them. This was just Cryo being good at the game, like his aim being correct and having good understanding of where that silver might be. That was just all Cryo. It wasn't anything to do with Jett. It was just Cryo being pretty good. Now, I'm sure if you watch the highlights of this map, that this kill was probably in there, and you're like, oh, well, this was a Jett kill, right? But again, we're going to go through it. Let's just watch it first. I'll just quickly show you the map so you can understand what's going on. So we've got a Viper bit on A. Obviously, they were a bit scared of then going towards A. They actually lost the Raze here and Hooker as well. As you can see, the Jett is pushed up pretty far, which is pretty good. And as you can see, they are starting to lean back towards A. back in towards the Viper's pit. But we're going to see what happens with this Jett and this Skye right now. Because I'm sure that, you know, if you got people to analyze this game, they're like, oh, this was Jett being good, right? This Skye dog. This Skye dog just walks past. And again, it's very good play by Cryo. He misses that shot, but he gets that one because he knows that obviously that Skye is probably still in the dog form because it just missed him. Now, you might think that, oh, well, that's a kill that only Jett could get. And maybe you're right. That is a kill that maybe only Jett could get. Maybe Neil could have got it as well. But, you know, it's kind of a Jett specialty kill. But the thing is, that relied on that Skye, you know, making a pretty huge mistake. And also, you know, potentially that Astra there, if they were watching it more closely as well. It's just a bit unfortunate. Basically, that Skye just made a big mistake, right? And sure, the Jett punished it, and maybe only Jett could punish that mistake like that. But overall, I just don't think that it was worth it. And again, this was basically the highlights. What I've shown you there is literally the highlights. And if you don't believe me, go back, watch the game, and look at all the moments that Jett actually made a difference in this match. And it's not that Jett can't make a difference. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pick Jett on this map. As I said, Jett is the best agent in the game. If you play those 4 agents together on any map, I believe you can find success. But it's about the understanding of how to use it. You know, it's about that dash into A site that we saw that was unnecessary, right? And I think that if you're going to use this Viper utility that they did, and look, it's here again, you know, the Viper utility, it's here every round. If you're going to do that, why Skye is a bit better is because you can walk up to this position and then flash through the wall and then go onto site, right? That is why you need a Skye. And that last round that we saw when all of XSET got trapped into this box, it's because they didn't have any flash to try and get out and move, you know, move past where their Viper utility was. So if I was XSET and you want to play this comp, change up with what you're doing with Viper, okay? Change it up. You know, maybe make it a wall that's deeper in towards site, right? Where this cross, yeah, sure, this cross gets a bit harder, but you've got Jett and Raze to be able to make that cross. But then once you've got here, you know, getting out onto the actual site and getting the spike down isn't nearly as difficult. This is the kind of thing that I think, you know, it's a team doing what they know is good. It's a team doing that, you know, something that pretty much every team does because it's really strong, but it didn't suit their team comp. You know, and every other team is doing it because they have a flash, you know, because they can use a KO flash or a Skye flash or even a breach flash potentially to then move past that wall and get past where they want to be. That's what most teams are doing with it. And so I think it was one of those things where they're just, you know, using what they know is successful, even if it didn't necessarily make sense with what they were particularly doing.